Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. I thought today would be a nice day to do another bracelet. I've been a little bit low on bracelets, so I thought I'd make one. And I have all that pretty lapis that I bought at the last show, so I thought I'd make kind of a random shaped cab lapis bracelet with, I don't know, 7 or 8 links. And I think it'll be pretty. We'll see. I've not made anything quite like this before, although I've thought about it. So we'll give it a try and see how it turns out. Before we do, I wanted to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I could not do this without them. And I do really appreciate them. Not just the financial contribution, but the really nice creative kind of community that they've built over there. It's a lot of really talented, smart people sharing ideas and resources and stuff. It's super nice over there. So thank you for making it that way. The other group is my YouTube subscribers. And we just passed 24,700, which is amazing. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate your support. I do also really appreciate the nice comments that you leave. One likes to feel that one is doing some good, so thanks for that. And thank you also for the nice contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees, the Super Thanks, people who buy my merch from my merch store, or people who download my ebooks. Those things all make my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without that help as well, so thank you for that. All right, well, let's get started on this bracelet. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. This particular one has a useful chart on the back. It's got a gauge to inches to millimeters conversion chart. I use that one pretty frequently. The other models have different charts and or information about metalsmithing. What I really like about them, though, is they have this dot matrix on the pages. It's kind of subtle on the camera, but it allows me to keep things more symmetrical because I'm not terribly good at drawing. So, but it's nice because I have a place where I can keep a record of everything that I've made. And I've probably filled up 5 of these now. So it's nice to be able to go back and see what you did if you want to repeat it or do something similar. So this is what I had in mind today. At the last show I was at, I bought this entire card full of this really pretty lapis that has like little white clouds running through it. And so I've been gradually using those, and I thought it would be fun to make one of these big bracelets with a number of different shaped cabs in it, because those are all different shapes. So I picked out some different ones, and we'll assemble a bracelet from it. So I'm going to do one bezel in front of you, and then I'll do the rest of them off camera. Here's the stones that I picked out. I'm just kind of randomly position them in relation to each other, and we'll make little rings to hook them all together. But first we're going to have to make bezels, and the bezels we're going to make are going to be open-backed. A couple of reasons here. One, some people like to have open backs so they can see the rear side of the stone as well. I kind of like that myself. And it's another way to save weight on a big bracelet like this, because you've already got the weight of all of these stones, so it's going to be kind of heavy. If you also have sheet all the way across the back, it's going to make it that much heavier too. So, plus you save a little money on silver if you do that as well. So, and if you're watching this in 2025, silver is really expensive right now. So that's what we're going to do. We'll make the bezel out of 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip in 26 gauge, which is 4.76 millimeters tall and 0.41 millimeters thick. This wire we're going to use to create a step on the inside of the bezel is 16 gauge square wire that I made from some ingots that I cast the other day. And so we'll make a little lip in there out of those. Some people put a bottom on and then saw out a central point when they're doing stuff like this, but I find I get pretty good results if I solder a piece of wire on the inside. A lot of times square wire looks for a nice neat kind of platform for the stone to sit on. So that'll be 1.3 millimeters, I believe 16 is. And then 18 gauge for these rings here. And I'm not sure about the ones connecting these rings. It may be 16 or 18. I'll take a look when I get to that stage and see whether I like it or not in different gauges, but I may also, in order to get a really solid attachment to these bezels, I may do rings and then set the bezel itself on top of the ring so that some of the ring sticks out, so it looks like a half of a circle sticks out, just to get a really solid connection on these, because I don't want any of these breaking off or becoming too flexed by just through wear and tear to where it weakens that connection there. So we'll do something like that. And let's see, for the clasp here, I'll probably make this out of 14 gauge. Just make a ring here, and then I'll make a shepherd's hook kind of clasp down here. Or if I wasn't already going to have to make a whole bunch of bezels like this, I might have done a box clasp or something like that. If you're interested in seeing how to do some box clasps, I have a video about that. I do them once in a while. They're kind of fun to make a little kind of mechanical device. So check that out if you're interested. But let's start by making a bezel. I think we'll start by making this bezel here. I'll set these other ones to the side. Well, before we get started, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, which looks like that. I use a liquid flux that I drip on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It draws in atmospheric air through here and mixes it with acetylene gas in the tip. And it produces a really nice flame for silversmithing. I like it. It's about 4,000 to 4,500 degrees. And so it's a little bit hotter than propane or butane, which allows you to do bigger pieces, but not so hot as oxyacetylene, which is a little bit overkill for silver most of the time, I think. So let's make a bezel for this. This is probably going to be an intermediate level project, I would guess, just because of the number of bezels you have to make. It might be a little bit, at least time consuming for a beginner. Most times I have beginners make closed-back bezels to start with anyway, before they start doing stuff like this. But if you're a beginner but you've got 20 or 25 projects under your belt, so you're kind of an advanced beginner, I don't see why you couldn't do this. So this one's got relatively sharp corners. We'll try and not have a lot of excess space here, because sometimes when you have sharp corners, if you leave too much extra space, it really creates some problems when you go to set the stone, from my experience. I'm just going to try and get that as snug as we can. We may even leave a little extra for filing, but not as much as usual, since I don't think it's tight up against here right now. So that will compensate for the fact that I couldn't get it completely tight up against there, if that makes any sense. Hopefully. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to thank one other person, Flying Chef, who follows me on YouTube, saw me using my my miter vise jig as a hammering surface. To flatten something with, or to put on top of something to hit with a hammer, and she was appalled, so she sent me this. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I have kind of a cheap miter vise jig. That's why I wasn't that concerned about it. But I do appreciate it. You guys are really awesome and nice. I appreciate all of my followers so much. Alright, so let's solder that. This particular one has got random shapes in it, but I've seen some that were kind of nice that were similar to this, where they had like the biggest stone in the center, and they did like all ovals but progressively smaller, or all circles progressively smaller, or whatever shape. And those look really nice too. So There's a lot of variations you could do with this sort of thing. I don't think I've ever done one with this many big stones of random shapes. So we'll see how it turns out. I think we got pretty good on the size of that one. This is the kind of project you can kind of lose yourself in and just kind of get lost in what you're doing, which is kind of the best sort of project for me. I really like being able to kind of forget about everything and just fall into what I'm doing. Losing some of that worry that's going on nonstop in your mind about everything. This is some of that 16 gauge square that I pulled earlier. And I think in order to get these sharp corners here, I might file a little bit of a notch to make them bend sharper so I can get it inside of here. Because I'm going to solder this right on the inside of that bezel at the base. So we'll do our best to get it tight up into the corners. I do not believe I'll have to do that on any of the other ones, because the ones that are teardrop shaped kind of have the two wires come together like this, and you can either file them to where the two flat sides meet perfectly, or you can cut one of them off and then file it at the correct angle to just butt up against this side of the wire. So that's what I'm talking about on these right at this point right here. So, but for this one, let's start in the middle of kind of one of these longer sides. Let's make a little mark with a marker. Let's just do that. Okay, so right where that is, I'm going to file a bit of a notch at the corner of my bastard file here. Doesn't have to be much. I did about halfway through on that one, but that allows me to bend this more sharply like that, so I can kind of get it to fit in there right. So now we just got to work our way around the sort of rounded rectangle that we have here. See if we can't get that to bend in all the right places. Ooh, that's way off. That's better. You can brace this on something if you do better with that one. One thing too about square wire is it has a tendency to twist on you a little bit when you bend it. So I'm going to cut this just a little bit longer than it needs to be. I'd rather have too much than not enough, but I don't want it to be away from the walls of this bezel on the inside. People would make fun of my bezel then. Can't have that. I would have to hang my head in shame. We're close enough now to where I'm going to solder this closed so it stays in place. Because right now, this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner are all really weak, and this is not soldered together. So let's get that all strengthened up and soldered back together, and then if we need to, we can file a little bit off the edges to make it snug in there. But I think we're actually really pretty close. So I do something sometimes called pick soldering, where I pick up a bit of solder on the end of this, heat the piece up to the flow temperature, and touch it where I want it to go. It's a super useful way of getting solder delivered to where you want it to be. And so if you're interested in seeing how to do that, I have a pretty decent video about it up there. It's one of those skills that kind of totally changed the way and things that I could do when I learned how to do it. For me, it was the key to getting reasonably good at things. Okay. That one was trying to escape. You can't escape me. Solder chip. It'll fit in there nice and snugly. Okay, well, one of the things you want to make sure to do when you're soldering something like this in is make sure it's nice and flat, so you don't have a wobbly platform to set your stone on when you get to that stage. And the easiest way to solder these in is to set them on top of some pieces of solder. At least that's been my experience. Let's get it all fluxed. And heat it from the outside, just like you would any other bezel. Looks like we got a good seam all the way around. So my next step is going to be to make 6 more bezels like that. I'm not going to make you watch me do the same thing over and over again. But when we come back, we'll start attaching some of these rings to these and get them in the right place, and then we'll start attaching everything together. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright, I have 7 little bezels here. All not the same. Oh, you know what we didn't do on this one? I meant to show you. Let's file this bottom flat. Alright, so we got kind of a clean bottom now. Everybody wants to have a clean bottom. Okay, so now we need to make some rings. Like I said, I'm going to make them circles, but a little bit bigger than that so they stick out from underneath. I think that'll give us a little bit more solid connection. So let me find some 18. Here's some 18. I think I'm going to use the second to smallest cylinder on my bail making pliers to do this. So let's just make a little spring here. I should be able to just snip jump rings off of this. You'll notice when I do this that I flip these cutters that I use as Zerons. They cut flat on this side, but not on this side. So I'll cut a little piece off of here on the end, flip it around so that the side facing it is going to be flat as well. Snip off this end. A lot of people saw these, but I can do this pretty quickly. These little pieces get used up and recast into something else. So. It's going to be hard to see on camera, but I put a little black mark on the top of the bezel. Kind of lined up with where I want those rings to stick out from underneath. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to solder each of these closed. And then that little ball of solder that's soldering them closed, we can stick underneath the bezel itself and reheat the whole thing, and it should just stick to it, theoretically. We'll see. Now, one of the things you have to think about, though, when you're soldering things that are significantly different in size, is the small pieces will reach the flow temperature of your solder much more quickly than the bigger pieces, because the bigger pieces have more mass and it just takes longer for them to reach temperature because it soaks up the heat. And so, knowing when and where to put the flame so that they both reach that 1450 degrees that hard silver sheet solder melts at about the same time takes a little practice. That honestly is the key to doing soldering silver well, I think that's the key. I think I'm going to call that good, otherwise I'll be spending all night pushing them around. Okay, so let's make marks on the next one over. Right there. Okay, let's do the next four. be honest, there's likely enough solder in this bottom solder joint where I put the step in to solder these rings on. However, it never hurts to be careful to have enough. That one shifted a little bit for some reason, so I pushed it back. So you could just do one loop on each one, except that's going to cause the thing to have a tendency to flip over if you don't have kind of some support, or to get twisted like this. So I like to have two different connectors between each link if I'm doing kind of a stone bracelet. So let's do these on the round one here. And then after that, I'm just going to do the rest off camera, because otherwise the video will be too long. And we'll come back and we'll do this here, and then we'll connect everything together. So let's do one more. When you're doing things like this, where you have multiple little solder joints that are going to be in a critical place that needs to be strong, you want to double check to make sure you got an actual good solder joint there, because you don't want these breaking off when you're polishing or something. Incidentally, polishing chains is kind of sketchy, so until you've done this for a while, you might want to ask someone who does have more experience to help you, or you could always tumble it, although tumbling doesn't really produce much of a finish for you. Okay, well, I'm going to just go ahead and make the rest of them, and then we'll be right back. Okay, I've got loops on everything here. It's gotten quite loopy here. So when I was thinking about hooking these together, since these are at weird angles and things, some of them are going to need to be, if I want those to remain kind of the same aspect, I'll need kind of a longer ring up there and a shorter ring down here, I think. And so I made two different size rings. These are all 18 gauge. Some the original same size as this, which I'll use for most of them, but then where I want it to spread out a little bit on one side, I'll use one of these bigger ones, which was the next size up on, the nail making pliers. I think these two are close enough to where I'm just going to hook these with two small ones. And let's use some medium paste solder for this. That way we have less chance of screwing something up. Oh, and I put a ring on this one. I modified the design slightly. I was going to have two rings coming out here with a ring between them, but I wanted a loose ring like this going in this direction. And the other side will make a little shepherd's hook kind of thing. So because these little rings are so much smaller and less massive, if I focus mostly on those, there's less chance of it sticking to anything else. If I accidentally laid it on, where it was touching something else. So let's see how we did. Okay, let's do the next one. I think this is the first one where I want a short one down here and a long one up there. So let's see how that ends up looking. Okay, we're pretty much there. I just need to make myself a little hook. So let's do that next. Use a bit of 14 gauge round. Let's file the end in kind of a curl there. Just do a little decorative curl there. Once everything's all done, I'll hammer this flat a little bit right here to make it stiffer so that this is kind of springy and it pops on there. But we need to add some little rings on here, then we'll connect these together. So let me see if I have any 18 gauge left. I feel like this one really soldered. Okay, I'll get this put in the pickle and then I'll come back and set some stones. Okay, so here's our bracelet all polished up. We just need to set some stones. I just set one or two in front of you and then I'll just do the rest on my own. When you have corners like this, sometimes it helps because you're trying to compress too much metal into too small a space. You take a file, just thin out the top edge, so you get about half as much bezel there. You got to be careful not to file all the way through because it's already relatively thin. Sometimes that just gives you enough. Just a little bit more compressibility. I do this differently than most. I use the flat side of my chain nose pliers here as a bezel pusher, so we'll kind of like do the corners first. So the corners. Lay it down. We'll kind of squish in the pieces between those corners. Okay. If you need to secure this in something, that's always a good idea if you have some hand problems. I sometimes have to. Once I feel it's pretty well bent in as far as it'll go, then I'm going to use the rounded outer part of my chain nose here as a burnishing tool. I'm using quite a bit of force when I'm doing this part. Two down, 5 more to go. So I'll be back and show you the final product, and then I'll get some pictures. So. Okay, it's getting late. This is a long one. So if you're going to do this project, plan for a little extra time. And there's our little bracelet. I think I like it. I'll get some pictures of it and we'll put them up at the end. Tell me what you think. Tell me what ideas you have, any kind of inspiration it might give you. I think you could also do this with all different stones. It wouldn't have to all be one type. But I like it. It's different. So, alright, I'll take some pictures. Okay, well that was the random shaped lapis cap bracelet. I hope that you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. That really helps my channel get promoted. And I would love it if you take a moment and hit my main channel page on YouTube here. I have over 550 videos now. I've been doing this for almost 4 years, and I've produced 3 videos per week for 99% of that time. So there's a ton of content there. And there's lots of projects and all different skill levels, so I think it's a great resource for people who are learning how to do this. And so watch a few of those, and then make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. There's no cost for that at all. I'd also love it if you'd visit the video description down below. There's some important links in addition to the information about this video. There's a link to my Patreon site, which is a great place with a lot of cool people. There's multiple tiers of membership there, the lowest tier being getting my YouTube videos without any YouTube advertisements in them, which is kind of a nice change. The other tiers above that include some other perks like Patreon exclusive videos and doing some live streams where I get to chat with them in real life, which is kind of nice. So check that out. Maybe consider signing up. I'd love to have you as a part of that community as well. There's also a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I talked about earlier, or some other merch. There's a number of different interesting things there. And there's a link to my 2 ebooks. The most recent one is 2024's Guide to the Tutorials during that year, and that has a page for each of the videos that I did, and includes things like a picture of the sketch that I drew, the final outcome, a list of materials that it took to create the project, a difficulty rating, a link right to the video, and then some notes I made about the project. Like, did I enjoy it? Was it a slog to do? Would I change the way I did it? Did I think it was a successful outcome? What did I learn from it? Or was it a failure? Because sometimes things don't work out the way you hope they do. So, but it's a great resource and has a lot of projects right at your fingertips, and a super nice way to support my channel if you want to get one of those. There's also a package deal if you get 2023s and 2024s. So check that out. Maybe download 1 or 2 of those, and then come back and see us again. I'll have another video for you on Thursday. So take care. Happy silversmithing.